In Los Angeles, innocence is a strategy, guilt is leverage, and every word is a weapon.
This isn't a recap of The Lincoln Lawyer. This is a masterclass in English power. The English of negotiation, of dominance, of survival.
Why does stay ahead of the curve command more respect than prepare early?
Why does land on your feet signal control, not luck?
Together, welcome to English Between the Lines, where English isn't spoken, it's weaponized. Check this out. You're in Los Angeles, heavy rain, and there's Mickey Holler, 40-ish, lawyer, fresh shaved in the back of a Lincoln. His office? Yeah, it's his car, rolling, moving, everything he needs right here.
Let's pause. Works out of his car. Notice the preposition out of, not in. Out of shows mobility, control. He's not trapped. He navigates power. He's everywhere, anytime.
Exactly. And while he's staring out the window, cars flying past, he's thinking. Cases, clients, money. He's his own system. Here's the deal. Mick's car is a rolling office. Laptop, files, phone rack, you name it. He's not just driving, he's operating the law. And that's LA style, right? Flexibility equals power.
And psychologically, this mobility affects how others see him. In negotiations, confidence is amplified. Language becomes sharper. Timing becomes leverage.
Let's move. Val calls.
I got a franchise player, Mick. This guy could be money.
There it is. Franchise player. Borrowed from sports. Clients as assets, not people. Currency. Risk and reward all in a sentence.
And could be money reinforces value without guaranteeing it. Power is conditional. Urgency implied.
Then we get the bail. Ready to put up the family's Malibu house against $1 million in bail. Numbers are weapons. Pressure, scarcity. Mick calculates silently.
Aggravated assault with GBI, great bodily injury, serious harm, legal severity. Understanding the terms shows insider comprehension.
And here's the leverage. Has the DA filed yet? Timing is everything. Filing, that's the system committing. Before that, everything's fluid. Negotiation space. Power moves.
And Val calls it ground floor. Early access, maximum opportunity. The client as investment. Language encodes strategy.
And now, hierarchy. Val says his mother's lawyer just waltzed in.
Waltzed in indicates arrogance, lack of respect for process. The phrase paints social posture instantly.
And then, doesn't know his ass about criminal. Street language meets legal hierarchy. Disrespect encoded in words. Mixed listening, evaluating, staying above.
Language here is power negotiation. Each expression signals control, knowledge, dominance.
Exactly. The system isn't neutral. Who frames whom? Who has knowledge? Who decides timing? That's real English in high-stakes settings. Inside the courtroom, Harold avoids eye contact. Avoidance is submission. Mick calls it, don't hide from your lawyer. Authority. Subtle but absolute.
And here's the classic Mick line. Rule 1, I get paid or I don't work. Boundary language. No negotiation, no apology. Transactional.
Harold tries jailhouse lawyering. The law says you can't just quit. Mick, I looked at the list of people I trust. You're not on it. Boom. Trust is currency. He's bankrupt.
And code switching shines. In court, he's formal, precise. Outside, street smart, fast, idiomatic. Same man, different language mask. Power maintained.
Final recap for the listeners.
1. Works out of his car. Mobility equals power. 2. Franchise player. Could be money. Clients as assets. 3. Waltzed in. Arrogance, disrespect. 4. Doesn't know his ass about hierarchy and skill. 5. Has the DA filed yet? Timing is leverage.
And here's your challenge. Next time you watch a movie, listen carefully. Ask, who has power? Who frames the conversation? That's how English really works.
Language moves people, just like that Lincoln.
Act 2. Could be money. All right, so now we're cruising. Same Lincoln, different morning. Sun's out this time. Tupac on the speakers. And that right there already tells you something changed. Different energy. Same man, different tempo. And then the phone rings. Not a judge, not a cop, a broker. Val.
Yes, and linguistically, Val's role is crucial. He doesn't say, I have a client for you. He says, I got a franchise player. That's not legal language. That's sports language, investment language, capital language.
Exactly. That's not about justice. That's scouting, draft night energy. Like, I found a first-round pick. And Mick, he doesn't flinch. That tells you everything. He's fluent in this dialect.
Franchise player frames the client as an asset that can generate long-term returns, not just one case. Bail, motions, trial prep, experts, delays. The legal system becomes a revenue stream and the client is the engine.
And then Val doubles down. This guy could be money. Could be. Not is. Could be. That's key.
Yes, could be signals risk assessment. In linguistics, modal verbs, could, might, may, are tools of power. They keep options open. Val is selling potential, not certainty. He's inviting Mick to evaluate upside versus exposure.
And Mick plays it cool. No excitement, no hunger showing. Because in this world, the first person who looks desperate loses leverage. So what does he ask? Logistics, timing, geography. Lancaster by 11 could be hard. That's not small talk. That's a test.
Right, he's checking whether the opportunity respects his constraints. Power dynamics aren't just about money, they're about who bends first. Mick isn't chasing the client, he's seeing if the client can chase him.
And then Val drops the line that really matters. His mother's lawyer just waltzed in. Boom.
That sentence is loaded. Just waltzed in is dismissive. Waltzing implies entitlement, casual intrusion, lack of seriousness. It frames the other lawyer as unserious before Mick ever meets him.
Yeah, like this clown showed up thinking he belongs, and Mick snaps right onto it. He's already got a lawyer? You hear that? That's not concern. That's inventory control.
Yes, because multiple lawyers dilute authority. Mick needs exclusivity to operate efficiently. Val responds by devaluing the competition. Strictly real estate, doesn't know his ass about criminal. That phrase is aggressive, crude, and intentional.
That's street language weaponized in a professional setting. It's code switching, but downward, used to establish hierarchy fast. Val is saying, this guy isn't one of us.
And notice how Mick responds. Go ahead. 2 words. Neutral, non-committal. He lets Val keep talking. That's power listening. He's letting the seller pitch harder.
Exactly. And Val does. He brings out the big gun. Malibu Beach House. Now we're not talking guilt or innocence. We're talking collateral.
Yes, property as leverage. In the U.S. legal system, wealth doesn't just buy comfort, it buys time, options, strategy. When Val mentions the house, he's signaling that this client has liquidity, or at least assets that can be converted into legal maneuverability.
And Mick's brain instantly recalibrates. $1 million, what they book 'em on. That's not shock, that's math.
Correct. Bail amount functions as a severity index. Mick is reverse engineering the charge before it's even filed. This is anticipatory cognition, thinking several procedural steps ahead.
And Val says it. Aggravated assault, GBI. No DA filing yet. Ground floor. That phrase, that's Wall Street language again.
Ground floor suggests early entry before valuation spikes. In legal terms, it means shaping the narrative before the prosecution locks theirs in. Timing equals power.
And Mick knows it. That's why he doesn't say yes, he doesn't say no. He says, I'm at the courthouse. Give me the name. That's a soft commitment. Conditional interest.
And even the name matters. Louis Roulet. Val spells it, explains pronunciation. Names carry class signals. French-sounding surname, Malibu property, this client occupies a higher socioeconomic tier.
And Mick jokes about the spelling, light humor, but that's also dominance. He's signaling comfort, control, familiarity with this world.
Humor in high-stakes negotiations often serves as a pressure release, but also as a subtle assertion of rank. Mick isn't impressed, he's evaluating.
And then Val reminds him, I steered him to you. That's a debt reminder.
Yes, social capital. Val wants future reciprocity. Mick responds politely but doesn't overcommit. You're on my Christmas list. Humor again. Debt acknowledged but not quantified.
So what do we learn here? Clients aren't just people, they're profiles, risk bundles, asset packages, and language, how they're introduced, described, framed, determines how much attention they get.
Exactly. This is the commodification of clients. The legal system, particularly at this level, operates less like a moral arena and more like a market. Language is the pricing mechanism.
And Mick, he's fluent. He doesn't moralize, he doesn't judge yet. He listens, calculates, and keeps moving, literally and mentally.
Which brings us back to mobility. He's still in the car, still between places, still unanchored. That physical state mirrors his psychological one, flexible, provisional, strategic.
Yeah, nothing's locked in. Not the client, not the case, not the truth, just potential.
And in Act 3, we'll see what happens when that potential collides with hierarchy, disrespect, and courtroom reality, when language stops being speculative and starts becoming confrontational.
Oh yeah, waltzed in, doesn't know his ass. Courtroom code switching gets sharp. Stay with us. Act 3. Waltzed in. Okay, now we enter the building. Different air. No more sun on chrome, no more freeway flow. This is courthouse air. Dry, tense, recycled ambition. And watch what happens to language the second we step inside.
Yes, this is where informal power meets institutional power, and the shift is immediate. Bodies straighten, voices lower, words become weapons.
Mick's moving through the crowd. Lawyers, defendants, public defenders running on caffeine and regret. And he spots his current client, Harold Casey. And Harold, he avoids eye contact. That right there, that's already a conversation.
Avoidance is an admission. Linguistically, silence and gaze aversion often precede conflict. Harold knows he's out of compliance. He hasn't paid. And in this ecosystem, non-payment is a breach of hierarchy.
Mick calls him out. Harold, hard case. That nickname, that's not friendly.
No, it's ironic labeling, a linguistic move that asserts dominance while appearing casual. By naming him, Mick controls the frame.
And then Mick says it, calm, direct. When the judge comes in, he's going to want to know if we're ready for trial. That's pressure, subtle but heavy.
Because ready for trial isn't procedural, it's existential. It forces Harold to confront consequences. Mick is escalating without raising his voice.
Harold says, we are. That's bluffing.
Yes, and Mick immediately punctures it. We're not. You haven't paid me. This is where professionalism drops and reality enters.
And then, boom, rule 1. I get paid or I don't work. That's not cruelty. That's structure.
Exactly. In professional hierarchies, rules replace emotion. Mick is reasserting the contract. Language becomes transactional again.
Harold tries to flip it. The law says you can't just quit. The judge won't let you. Jailhouse lawyering.
Which is a fascinating linguistic phenomenon. Non-experts borrowing the authority of legal language to challenge real authority. It almost never works, but people try because language feels like power.
And Mick, he doesn't explode. He waits because he knows something Harold doesn't. Timing.
Yes, authority often waits for institutional reinforcement, and right on cue, the judge enters. Judge Orton Powell.
The room shifts. You can feel it. Everyone snaps into place. Mick says, pay close attention, Harold. That's not advice, that's instruction.
Because now Mick is about to perform power through the system, not against it.
He stands, introduces himself, and then comes the move. I'd like to carry this over. Simple sentence, devastating impact.
Because carry this over sounds procedural, but it's strategic. Mick is signaling a delay without revealing the real reason.
The judge asks why, and Mick says, I'm having trouble locating a witness, an indispensable witness, a Mr. Green. That name, man.
Mr. Green is a masterstroke. On the surface, it's a witness. Subtextually, it means money, payment, compliance. This is linguistic double-entry bookkeeping.
And the judge gets it immediately. That look they exchange, that's shared cultural knowledge.
Yes, institutional fluency. Judge Powell was a defense attorney once. He understands the code. No explanation needed.
So the judge asks how much time Mick needs. A week? Mick says, I hope so. Hope. Another modal word. Non-committal, respectful.
Hope maintains humility while preserving authority. Mick isn't demanding, he's inviting cooperation.
And the judge grants it. Case continued. Harold's being led away, and he's pissed. That was bullshit.
This is where Mick explains the lesson.
Yeah, and it's cold, surgical. The judge knows all about chasing Mr. Green, and he doesn't look kindly on defendants who don't pay their attorneys. That's hierarchy explained in plain language.
Exactly. Mick translates the system not into legal jargon, but into consequences. This is real education.
And Harold can't look him in the eye, because now he understands. The courtroom isn't neutral, the system isn't blind, and language, used correctly, moves outcomes.
And notice how Mick never raises his voice, never insults, never threatens. Power doesn't need volume.
So when Val said waltzed in and doesn't know his ass about criminal, this is what he meant. There are levels, and if you don't speak the right language at the right moment, the system eats you alive.
And notice how Mick never raises his voice, never insults, never threatens. Power doesn't need volume.
So when Val said waltzed in and doesn't know his ass about criminal, this is what he meant. There are levels, and if you don't speak the right language at the right moment, the system eats you alive.
In Act 4, we'll bring it all together. Mobility, money, hierarchy, and ask the real question. What does it cost to live like this?
Yeah, because power always sends a bill. Stay with us. Act 4, the costs of control. So now, zoom out. We've seen the car. We've seen the money talk. We've seen the courtroom chess. But here's the real question nobody asks out loud. What does it cost to live like Mickey Holler?
Yes, because power, when sustained, always extracts a psychological price. And Haller's lifestyle, mobility, adaptability, control, comes with chronic instability.
Think about it. He's never still, never fully present. Even when he's winning, he's already moving to the next problem.
That's cognitive hypervigilance, a constant state of alertness. Linguistically, we see it in how he speaks, short sentences, conditional language, strategic ambiguity. Emotion is filtered out to preserve clarity.
And the car, that rolling office everyone romanticizes, it's also a barrier. No roots, no fixed ground, no safe space where the mask comes off.
Exactly. Mobility provides freedom, but it also prevents rest. When your identity is built around motion, stillness feels dangerous, silence becomes threatening.
That's why he keeps the radio on, why the phone's always buzzing, why there's always another file. Noise keeps reflection away.
And notice something else. Mickey is excellent at reading others, but rarely examined himself. His linguistic intelligence is outward-facing. He decodes clients, judges, brokers, but avoids introspection.
Because introspection slows you down, and slowing down in his world, that's how you lose.
Yes, the system rewards speed, adaptability, and emotional suppression. But long-term, those traits erode empathy and self-connection.
So when we hear phrases like franchise player or could be money, they don't just commodify clients, they commodify the lawyer too.
Precisely. Haller becomes a function, not a person, a mechanism within the machine. Highly skilled, highly compensated, but constantly negotiating his own humanity.
And that's the Nor truth of this story. There's no clean hero, just professionals navigating a system that doesn't care how you feel, only how well you perform.
Which brings us back to language, because language is the last place where agency survives. The words you choose determine whether you're controlled or in control.
That's why the story hits so hard for English learners too, because this isn't textbook English. This is real English, power English, negotiation English, the kind of English that decides outcomes.
When you understand phrases like works out of his car, or waltzed in, or could be money, you're not just learning vocabulary, you're learning how English encodes hierarchy, intention, and power.
And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Every meeting, every phone call, every casual phrase suddenly means more.
That's the goal of this series, not just comprehension, but perception.
Yeah, to help you hear English the way insiders hear it. Not polished, not academic, but alive.
Because language isn't neutral, it shapes reality.
And if you master it, you don't just understand the game, you play it better. All right, before we disappear back into the rain,
If you're watching this on YouTube and you want more immersive stories like this,
where you learn real English through cinema, psychology, and power dynamics,
then take a moment to support the channel.
subscribe so you don't miss future episodes.
Like the video. It helps this kind of content reach people who are hungry to learn differently.
And share it with someone who wants to improve their English without boring lessons.
We'll be back with more films, more scenes, more language decoded.
Same city, same shadows.
Until then, listen carefully.
Because English is always saying more than it seems.